Welcome to our neighborhood services partnership with the cities of Avondale, Chandler, Glendale, Goodyear, Mesa, Peoria, Phoenix, Scottsdale, Surprise, and Tempe. Our class today is going to be, you have been recently elected to the board of directors. What do you do now? In this class, we will be covering the roles, responsibilities, risks, and fiduciary duties of board members in an HOA or condo. My name is Beth Mulcahy, and I am the managing partner and senior attorney for the Mulcahy Law Firm in Phoenix, Arizona. I have enjoyed working with and representing HOAs and condominiums for over 27 years. My firm currently represents over 1,000 planned communities and condominium associations throughout the state of Arizona. I also currently serve on my HOA board and have for many years. Today, what we're going to be talking about is charting your course. And we're going to be talking about a comprehensive guide to board roles and responsibilities in an HOA or a condo. And for those of you who are just joining us, welcome to class number 5 of our firm's 2024 Virtual HOA and Condo Academy. We teach these classes in partnership with the cities of Avondale, Chandler, Glendale, Goodyear, Mesa, Peoria, Phoenix, Scottsdale, Surprise, and Tempe. We appreciate that partnership very much because we've been teaching classes with them for over 20 years. Each individual municipality or city, varying times for each one of them. But, we've enjoyed the partnership to work with them to provide free education to board members, homeowners, and managers. Before we get started today, I would like to start off by getting a feel for who's here today so that I can tailor the information to best serve all of you. So we're going to be launching 2 polls right now. If you're joining us on Facebook Live, what I would like you to do is just answer the question in the comment section, please, so we know that you're there. If you're joining us on Zoom, you're going to be seeing the poll on your screen. So the questions are, in what city do you reside? And the second question is, what is your current role with the association? Are you a board member, a community manager, an interested homeowner, or other? So while we're waiting for those poll results to come in, we're going to talk a little bit about what's on our agenda today. And then also we're going to talk a little bit about the new legislation that's pending in the Arizona Legislature. As always, at the end of our class today, I'm going to be doing a free Q&A. So we encourage you to submit your questions via the Q&A box on Zoom or the comment section on Facebook Live. And we promise to answer every question during this session today. We ask you that you please, however, limit to 1 question per person, since it looks like we have a great turnout today. Oh my goodness, 123 people, which is amazing. I'm on Zoom and more of you are joining us on Facebook Live. So we do ask that you just limit it to 1 question per person, and please try your best to be as specific as possible with your question, because it's hard for me to follow up with you when we're doing a live virtual format if I need clarification on a question. Okay, we're going to go forward and talk a little bit about our legislature. Our legislature has been in session since January 8th, and we've been closely following the bills that pertain to associations. This year, there were many bills introduced, over 20. Some of them were a little bit duplicative of the same topic, but we already have 7 bills that have been signed into law by the governor that pertain to HOAs and condominiums. So from my perspective, I would say this has been a very big legislative year for associations in Arizona. As you may know, the legislature is still in session. This has been kind of a year of hot topics in the legislature other than the HOAs and condos. And we anticipate that the legislative session should end hopefully in the next few weeks. What the process is that after the legislative session ends, 90 days after that, is when all the new bills that are signed into law by the governor go into effect. So we have, fortunately, plenty of time to analyze and talk about these 7 bills, and if anything's added before the legislative session ends, there may be more than 7. We do have a summary sheet that we put together that we're going to be sharing with you right now on those 7 bills that have passed and been signed into law this year. Again, these won't go into effect until 90 days after the legislative session ends. So when we get closer to the legislative session ending and the effective date of these new laws, we'll be having a special seminar just on this topic to talk about the bills and how they're going to impact your communities and how, they may impact your board how you're managing things as a board in your community. So we're going to be sharing with you now the 2024 legislative summary. We also update frequently on our website what's going on in the legislature. On our homepage, we have the legislative summary posted, and we're updating it frequently throughout the legislative session. Okay, let's go back and talk a little bit about our poll results. So we have a great turnout today. Every single city that is sponsoring these classes is represented here today. So that's amazing. So we have 3% from Avondale, 7% from Chandler, 3% from Glendale, 6% from Goodyear, 22% from Mesa. That's incredible. That's a new one. We don't usually have as many from Mesa, so great to have you here. 7% from Peoria, 19% from Phoenix, 17% from Scottsdale, 9% from Surprise, which is great, and 5% from Tempe. And just I'm looking at the total numbers right now. We have over 136 people here today, either on Facebook or on Zoom. So great to have everybody here. Now let's talk a little bit about who's here in terms of what's your role with the community. So we have 73% of you that are board members here today, 4% community managers, 18% interested homeowners, and 5% would be the other. So welcome to all of you. Looks like we're top heavy today with board members, but we have a good representation of managers and homeowners here today too. So I'll be tailoring our class so that we, and obviously the topic of the class is board member roles and responsibilities. So it's instructive that we would have so many board members here today. So we'll be tailoring the class to our demographics here today. Okay, let's shift gears now and talk a little bit about our focus of today's presentation. So charting your course, a comprehensive guide to serving on your board and your roles and responsibilities of being a board member in an HOA or condo. In this class, we're going to talk a little bit about the roles, the responsibilities, the risks, and fiduciary duties of board members in an HOA and condo. Let's just start out just with a question that I commonly get from boards is, hey, do I have any liability if I'm serving on this board, especially the new board members? So let's say you've just been elected to your board and you're wondering, or maybe your spouse is saying to you, like, hey, I know this is like a volunteer thing, but like, hey, could this impact our financials in any way? Like if somebody makes a mistake and there's a lawsuit or whatever. So let's get that, elephant in the room discussed right away. So when you're serving on your board of directors, there's many layers of insulation for you as a board member. So you are never going to be held personally liable for anything that happens on your time on the board. Now, there's some exceptions to that. Like, let's say you embezzled money from the association. That would be an exception where you would, be personally liable for that. But, 99.99999% of the time, when you're serving on your board, you have no individual liability. So that's important for you to know. Let's say that you get sued as a board member. Let's say that you have a homeowner that sues the association and maybe names the board individually in the lawsuit. What does that mean for you individually? Well, there's plenty of, insulation around you as a board member. The first layer of insulation is the association should be carrying directors and officers insurance. They call it D&O insurance or E&O insurance, errors and omissions insurance. And so that layer of insulation protects the board for your decisions that you make while you're serving on the board. And if for some reason the board is sued or the association is sued for the board's actions or individuals are sued, you are going to have the insurance company will be notified and the insurance company will tender a defense, hire a lawyer to defend you in this matter. And you'll pay no out-of-pocket cost individually. And so that, in terms of serving on the board, really important for you to know that you don't have individual liability. You have insurance coverage under your E&O policy, your directors and officers policy, to provide insulation in the event that you're sued. And then kind of a third layer of insulation is under the law and under your documents. Typically, this is also in your bylaws of your association. The board is required, or the association is required to indemnify you as a board member in the event that you are named in a lawsuit or there's a judgment entered against you for your service on the board. So lots of insulation for you as you're serving on the board. So take that worry, off your plate. It's challenging to be a board member. I think at the introduction to this class today, I talked about the fact that, I am a board member in my community, and I have been for many years. And kind of a fun interesting little tidbit this morning is I was out walking our dog, and I ran into another board member who's on one of the boards that I serve on with me. And we were less than a quorum. Don't worry, we weren't violating the open meeting law. But we were just kind of talking about some of the challenges that each of us are facing, serving on the board, and where we saw things going this year on some of these bigger challenges. And, it was nice to have a connection with another board member because honestly, I've been feeling a little frustrated about how things are going. And just to share that, hey, we just need to reprioritize. Hey, we don't have the votes to do some big things that we wanted to do this year. And just strategizing about reprioritizing on what are some things we think we have the votes on the board to accomplish this year. So just a starting point, serving on the board can be very rewarding because many times I'm walking around my community at night when I'm walking our dog, and I think about the many things that we've accomplished and I'm proud of that we've done. But it also can be frustrating. So I think that's important for everybody to hear who's sitting on this call who are board members, 73% of you. It's okay to feel frustrated about your time on the board. That's actually kind of normal because you're dealing with problems, right? I wish I could say that maintenance, once you fix one thing that, everything's going to be honky-dory in your association. That's not how it works, right? Once you fix one thing, another thing breaks. It's just like home ownership, right? And so there's constant maintenance. You're going to have problems with people, right? There's going to be personality conflicts. There's going to be people who are upset that they received a violation letter. These are all things that happen when you are serving on a board. And both of those could be perceived as, potentially negative things. But the positives, far outweigh the negatives in that, hey, you're making a difference in your community. You're solving a lot of problems. You're planning for the future. You're fixing things that need to be fixed so that amenities can be used. And you're helping people. Basically, and it's free. You're doing it for free. You're not getting paid. You're doing it because you love your community and you want to see it better. So as we, kind of navigate into, I like to kind of hit those two topics first, like, hey, you don't have any liability. You have plenty of insulation around you as a person serving on a nonprofit board. Second, it's hard to be a board member. And there are many rewards for being a board member, but it also has a lot of challenges, and that's normal. And you have to have kind of the one thing I would say is if you're serving on your board, you have to have a sense of humor, because if you don't, it's going to be a very long term that you're serving on the board. It's going to be a long 2 years or 1 year, however long your term is. So you have to be able to look at things and be able to laugh at times, because there are some things that happen that are funny and kind of just absurd, and you just have to laugh at it and say, okay, this is kind of funny. Let's move forward. Let's be able to laugh at the situation and be nice and move forward. Okay, so now let's dig into what it means to be on the board. What are your duties and responsibilities? So some of you may be on this call today, and you may be seasoned board members looking for some sharp fine-tuning and sharpening of your pencil as you're serving on board. Others of you may be total newbies. Maybe you were just elected to your board in January or February this year, and you want to know more about, okay, what does it mean for me to be a board member? What are my responsibilities and duties under the law and under the documents? And so what we're going to do is we're going to give you just an overview of what are the different things that I think you need to know. It's mandatory for you to know if you're serving on your board. The first thing I think that's really important is kind of the human aspect of serving on a board. So when you're elected to your board, you are looked at in the community as somebody who is a leader, and it's your responsibility to provide the caring leadership and service that makes living in an association desirable. So you're overseeing what might be the largest asset of many owners who live in your association. So you have to understand that when people come to the meeting and they're fired up about something, it's because, hey, I have a lot of money tied up in this property and I pay my monthly dues or my monthly assessments. And it's frustrating to me to come to the pool, right, and have it not be working, or the jacuzzi not, being heated, or whatever the issue is that you're dealing with. So just recognize that, you need to be we call it a servant leader in business circles, right? You are doing this because you love your community. You're serving, and you should be providing caring leadership and having a patient and kind approach in how you're handling homeowners and problems as they arise in your community. So a couple things to think about. You have to run your association like a business. Okay. What does that mean? That means, we talked a little bit about being professional in your interactions with owners, right? We shouldn't be ever having board members shouting at homeowners in a board meeting, or, raising their voice towards each other, using bad language, losing your temper. All of these are things that are not desirable qualities of a board member. What we're looking for is somebody who is professional, responsible, respectful, nice, a problem solver that can look at a difficult problem and be rational and reasonable in how they approach finding a solution to the problem. Treating people with kindness and understanding. I think probably everybody on this Zoom call has been in a situation where maybe you were frustrated about something, right? Like, I had a real frustrating day yesterday with the internet. And so I was very frustrated because we were struggling with, internet service. And so people come to you when they're at their breaking point in terms of being frustrated, and they may be behaving in a way that's not, the way that they always behave. They might be upset about their neighbor that's having wild parties, or about the VRBO that, is, potentially, running, bachelorette parties, and it's, they're staying up all night and doing crazy things. And so you have to understand that people come to you sometimes in an agitated state, and you have to just be nice and listen to what they're saying, let them know that they're being heard, and then try to proactively find a solution with them. Some other things that I think are really important are following the law. And honestly, I probably don't even have to say it for the 145 plus of you who are here today, because you're here because you want to learn what the law is, right? So that you make sure you're not screwing up and violating the law. But there's a lot to know. And there's Arizona laws that you need to be aware of. There's federal laws that you need to be aware of. And going to these classes is a really good idea, so that you have a general knowledge. Okay, hey, we need to know that if somebody makes a records request, it's an owner, that we have to provide the records of the association to them, with a few exceptions, etc. So going to these classes, getting education, really important. But then you also have a heightened level of, okay, we have to follow the law too. So we need to be aware of it, but then we also need to follow Arizona and federal laws. And, a good thing to think about as you're navigating this, and you obviously also have to follow your association's documents, is, make sure that you have your trusted advisors in place to help you navigate your time on the board. So this is going to be your management company, if you have one, your attorney, your reserve specialist for your association, your insurance agent. All of these different people are your landscaper. All of these different people are part of your team to help you, comply with the law, or, help you do your job better. So having those trusted advisors in place is really important component of being successful on your time on the board. Okay, now let's talk about some general responsibilities of serving on the board. So board members and directors are responsible first to participate, right? I can't tell you how many times I hear from boards this question. Hey, we have somebody who is elected to the board and they never show up. They don't come to board meetings. They don't respond to any, telephone calls or emails that we may send to them asking them what's going on. If you volunteer to be on the board, or if you're elected to be on your board, you have to participate. And what does that mean? That means attending board meetings, arriving on time at the board meetings, being knowledgeable and prepared for that board meeting, and being ready to discuss and vote on issues in the community. You also kind of have to have your antenna up at all times. And by that, I mean that, let's say you're walking around the neighborhood and you happen to see something that's a dangerous condition. You should be notifying your board or your management company of that dangerous condition so it can be rectified. So just participating, show up, be prepared, and have your antenna up when you're, walking around the community. Now, I want to make a little caveat on the antenna. I'm not saying be Mrs. Kravitz. I'm probably dating myself by saying that, but like Mrs. Kravitz from Bewitched, who's always at her window, spying on the neighbors, waiting for them to do something wrong. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is, be the board member that if you see the gate at the pool broken and the gate now isn't locking properly, that's something that should be reported right away. Or maybe you see somebody doing something dangerous in the common areas, that should be reported right away. Those type of things, maintenance issues, those type of things should be reported right away. Okay, another responsibility, general responsibility of the board is reading, understanding, and being in compliance with the association's governing documents. By governing documents, I am referring to the CC&Rs, or the Declaration of Covenants, Conditions, and Restrictions, the Articles of Incorporation, the bylaws, and the rules and regulations of the association, the architectural guidelines or design review guidelines. These are your association's core documents. Now, when I say read and understand them and be in compliance in them, what I recommend is that maybe at the beginning of each year or once a year, you take a 15-minute spin through them. And everybody who's on your board should have a binder with all the documents in it. Or if you're not, paper people, you should have something, online, a resource that the board can use so that they can look things up at any time if they need to see the documents of the association. So just spend 15 minutes going through them once a year. Get the lay of the land. Figure out, okay, the CC&Rs are going to be the use restrictions, and that we have to carry insurance, and that they have to pay assessments, and the association's responsible for maintaining this, and the owners are responsible for maintaining this. The bylaws, those are going to be more of your how to run the association or how to run the board for your association. The Articles of Incorporation set you up as a nonprofit corporation, puts a shield around your board and your association so that none of you are held individually liable. So just doing the quick spin once a year, get the lay of the land on the documents. That is something that is a responsibility of the board. So that if a shed question comes up, okay, shed, use restriction, that's going to be in the CC&Rs. Can people have sheds or not have sheds, right? You just want to have a general working knowledge of the documents. Okay, let's talk about the next general responsibility. This is probably the most important thing I'm going to talk about today, and that is your fiduciary duty to the corporation. So when you're serving on the board for your community, you have a fiduciary obligation that's set up under the law. That says that you have to have, basically 3 duties. So you have a duty of care, a duty of confidentiality, and then a duty to avoid conflicts of interest or self-dealing. So let's talk about those fiduciary duties just very quickly. And again, this is really important because it's something that every decision that you're making in your community should be kind of based on this fiduciary duty model, okay? Over, the 30,000 feet view of fiduciary duty is we need to be acting in the best interests of the association, right? In every decision we make as a board, that's our fiduciary duty. A more microscopic look at this would be, okay, we have the duty of care. What does that mean? That means when we're making decisions for the community that we need to research things and have information, get enough bids so that we make sure we're paying the going rate. Understand, the ins and outs of putting in the EV charging stations in our common areas. If you're looking into that, is there a rebate? How is it going to look? How long will it take to charge? Just doing your duty of care when you're making decisions, right? The duty of confidentiality is kind of obvious, but you have to keep things that you hear about in executive session or other sensitive things quiet, meaning you can only talk about them with the board. And, you can't talk about them with your spouse. You can't talk about them with your pickleball group, your walking group, your, water aerobics group. You can't. You can only talk about executive sessions and other sensitive items with the board. Be really careful on that, because we see a lot of situations where there are loose lips and they do sink ships. You have to be careful. You're going to get the juicy scoop on everything when you serve on your board. And honestly, you don't even know that. When you get elected to the board, you're just like, whoa, this is like a lot of confidential information that's coming my way. Maybe it's about an owners and a domestic dispute, or maybe somebody's not paying their dues or assessments, or maybe somebody, we've received a complaint about a house being like a drug dealing house. These are confidential things that you need to keep confidential, and you can only talk about them with the board and no one else. The last fiduciary duty is the duty to avoid conflicts of interest and self-dealing. And this one's kind of obvious. We really do not see this hardly ever, but it's important to note, is that you have a responsibility when you're serving on your board to not profit personally from being a board member, right? Or not have your family members profit from you being on the board. So, for example, no kickbacks from vendors should ever be directed to you. No special favors should be directed towards you. You shouldn't be hiring your, nephew's company to be the landscaper. These are all potentially conflicts of interest and, it's self-dealing and it's against the law. So, quick recap on fiduciary duty. You have to act in the best interest of the association, number one. Number two, you have a duty of care, a duty of confidentiality, and a duty to avoid conflicts of interest or self-dealing. Okay, let's talk a little bit about one aspect that's kind of related to fiduciary duty that I think is just important that I mention as a caveat, is that when you're serving on your board, you have to place your interests secondary to the interests of, what's best for the community. And that will come up from time to time when you're looking at issues, right? And so, we've seen different issues come up over time. So I'm going to give you an example. Let's say that your association is in dire straits, difficulties right now, and you need to have a special assessment, a large special assessment per owner to dig out of some of the problems that you have. Maybe we've got, a big problem in a lake that you're responsible for maintaining in your association, right? And it's going to cost $1 million to fix it, right? And that means everybody's going to have to pay pursuant to a special assessment to pay for that if you don't have the money allocated in your reserve. And maybe you're thinking as a homeowner, well, I don't live near the lake. I don't go to the lake. Why do I have to pay for it? Well, that's just part of being on the board, right? And being a member in the association. And so while you may personally not benefit from something, it's still something in a Malfi that needs to be repaired in the association. And, maybe you're thinking, I don't have enough money, or I can't pay a special assessment, so I'm just going to vote against this for the board. Well, that may not be what's in the best interest of the community. It may be in your best interest because you don't have to, come up with the money, but it's, potentially breaching your fiduciary duty to the corporation. So you need to be really careful to place the interests of the association above your personal interests when you're making decisions as a board member. Okay, let's switch gears and talk about a couple other important general responsibilities. We mentioned this just briefly kind of at the beginning, that running the association like a business, right? Overseeing and treating the association services and facilities as a business. So making sure that you're complying with city code or, county codes that may apply to your association. Hiring licensed and bonded contractors is a huge one. There's a reason why you do that, and it's to limit your liability for the corporation, number one. Number two, to get somebody in to do the work who has the experience and expertise to do the work. And it's important that, you're thinking about the community, like you want to treat it like a business, right? You're overseeing a business. So you shouldn't be making short-sighted decisions, that are going to potentially have some pretty serious consequences for the association. Really good example I have of this is, we've seen cases where an association may hire a vendor to do work in the association. And in one particular instance, I can think of a time that an association hired a vendor and the vendor was unlicensed and unbonded, and they knew that, but they were getting a cheaper rate, right? So we're saving so much money. Well, the vendor, unfortunately got injured, seriously injured on the property while working. And ultimately, the association ended up paying like 10x more because this vendor fell off the roof of an association. And then the next thing we knew, the vendor was in the hospital and had accumulating hospital bills. And the next thing we knew, we were getting a workers' compensation claim, for this particular vendor who, we never thought he was our employee. But according to, the state, because, he wasn't licensed, he wasn't bonded, and he wasn't set up as an independent contractor, he didn't have insurance. Guess what? He technically was our employee. And so this particular association had to pay out a lot of money in, workers' compensation to, make that person whole. So, when you're doing big projects, make sure you're running those contracts by your attorney. Make sure you're using licensed and bonded contractors and treating the association's business like a business. Okay, another responsibility would be if you have a management company, you have to oversee them a little bit. Now, there's a fine line here because there's a difference between, nitpicking and micromanaging them and, not doing anything and just letting them do whatever they want as a management company. Okay, there's a balance. So you want to be somewhere, right in the middle on that. And so what's an example of how do we oversee the management company? And they have a very important role, right? Because they're overseeing banking, they're overseeing our budget, our insurance, making sure our insurance is getting paid, maybe any insurance claims they're overseeing. They keep our utilities on by paying the bills. They oversee the landscaper. They kind of are handling a lot of the business affairs of the association, like paying taxes. And so what's the good balance on this? Well, first, the point guard, of course, is going to be the president of the association, and they're going to be the person that probably has the most contact with the management company. But everybody on the board should be involved in, making sure that the management company is, doing what they're supposed to be doing under the management contract. Now, that doesn't mean that, one board member should be, going around the community with a clipboard, pointing out all the deficiencies in the management company and then, making their life miserable. I'm not saying that, but I am saying that, we can't just delegate everything to the management company and just check out. We should be looking very closely at the management company report and the packet that we get every month for the board meeting, making sure that they're accomplishing tasks that we've asked them to do or to look into. The treasurer should be very carefully analyzing the financials of the association to make sure that there isn't any sort of fraud or embezzlement going on, via the management company. I already talked about this, but, just making sure that we're making the management company aware of any problems or deficiencies on the property as we're using the facilities or as we're walking our dogs at night, just keeping them up to speed on what's going on and any maintenance items that need to be done. So basically, we need to oversee the management company pursuant to the contract, but we don't want to micromanage them to the point that they want to quit. It's just a balance. You got to, get in that sweet spot, a good zone, and, work together with them because they are your teammate, right? They're helping you with your time on the board, and it shouldn't be a negative relationship. It should be a positive teamwork type relationship. Okay, let's talk a little bit about Arizona law. One in particular that I want you to be aware of is the Arizona open meeting law. And basically what that says, and this is just a general responsibility, but this is probably, other than fiduciary duty, this is really important. The second most important thing I'm going to say today. Arizona has a special law that pertains just to HOAs and condos, and it's the open meeting law, and it says this. It says, anytime a quorum of the board is meeting to discuss association business. We have to give 48 hours notice to the membership of the meeting. And we have to have an agenda for people who show up at the meeting. And, we can only talk about certain topics in the open meeting. It's basically everything, except for some topics that if we want to, we can go into executive session. And those typical topics would be like advice from your attorney, elections, violations. Maybe if you're having a problem with a vendor or an independent contractor or an employee, you can do all of that in executive session. Now, mind you, before you go into executive session, you have to provide the owners with information about which topics under the law you're going to be discussing in executive session. That's the law. We have to do that. So you just need to be aware of, if we go into executive session, what we recommend is that you have the executive session meeting notice indicate which section under the law you're going to be discussing in executive session. And the reason why that's out there is because sometimes people felt that boards were going into executive session and talking about non-executive session topics. And so the legislature wants to hold the board's feet to the fire and say, okay, if you want to go into executive session, you need to provide notice to the membership which sections under the law you're going to be discussing during executive session. So just being aware that there is an open meeting law. We have to be very careful with email between board members. If a quorum of the board is emailing each other and making decisions, that's a violation of the law. And so the open meeting law is, something that you have to comply with. And is it a hassle? Yes. But the benefits outweigh the hassle, because we want our homeowners to feel that we're being transparent and accountable. And the best way to do that is to give them the opportunity to participate and listen in on our open board meetings. Okay, another aspect of the law that want you to be aware of is you're going to see violations when you're serving on your board, right? You're going to have owners that aren't maintaining their lot, or, maybe they have a dog that's barking, or maybe they damage the common areas or something. They get into a car accident and, run into the association's wall. One of the things that you are able to do under the law, if there is a violation of the documents by an owner, is fine the owner. But there are some special requirements under the law that we want you to be aware of. First, you have to give the owner notice and an opportunity to be heard. So notice of the violation and then a hearing, basically. And the hearing doesn't have to be in person. It could be, you have a right to respond by email to this violation. And then the board determines whether or not they're going to levy a fine. So it's kind of a 3-step process. You send out the violation notice, right? And you say in the violation notice, you violated the documents in this way. And if you, want due process, or you want to have the board hear your side on this, you're welcome to respond in writing by email by, May 30th, whatever the date is. And then after that time period is up, then the board discusses, are we going to fine this person, as we stated in the first letter, or are we going to not fine them because they corrected it or whatever? So it's a 3-step process. So notice of the violation, telling them about an opportunity to be heard, the actual time period for the opportunity to be heard, and then the board makes the decision as to whether or not you're going to fine them for what the violation is. So just being aware that there's a whole process if you want to fine an owner. Fines are kind of complicated in that, you can levy fines against an owner, but in order to get them to pay them, you have to go to court and get a judgment. That's what the law says. In order to collect on a fine and make it a judgment lien, you have to perfect it by going to justice court, getting a judgment, just a piece of paper saying Johnny Appleseed owes the association $5,000 in fines. And then you can collect it by garnishment of the owner's wages or their bank account, garnishing their wages if they're working, or, just pursuing them, legally with that judgment saying, hey, you need to pay it. Okay. Another thing that we want to talk about, another responsibility under the law that I want you to be aware of, is if owners want to inspect books and records of the association, generally speaking, they are able to do that. So how it works is if somebody makes a request to inspect the books and records of the association, We have 10 business days to get the records to them, and we can charge 15 cents per page if the RO wants to see a copy of it. One thing I always advise boards is be transparent. If somebody wants to see records, let them, because if it looks like we're trying to hide something, they're going to think that we're hiding something, and we can't be trusted. The only exception to that would be is that if we're involved in litigation, or I've given a legal opinion about a legal matter that I may not want the entire community to see. Those might be exceptions where we don't give the records, but pretty much everything else is fair game. Okay, another general responsibility for the board is being a good communicator. What I always tell boards is the boards that have the fewest problems, guess what? They're the best communicators. And so providing open communication to the membership, such as like having a newsletter, a bulletin board, a website, a constant contact email that goes out, once a week, just updating the membership about what's going on. If there's a problem, if there's a big problem, what do we do? Do we bury it? Hope it goes away? No, we hit it head on. Recently, I had a situation where we had some homeowners in a community that were very upset about an issue. And this is not an isolated incident, right? I've been doing this 27 and a half years. And so, there's going to be times where you may have homeowners that are fired up about something, upset. And if people are genuinely upset and it's starting to, spread, call a town hall meeting. Air grievances, say you're sorry as a board. Okay, we're sorry, we should have communicated better with you. And we're sorry for the situation, but we will do better going forward. Listen to the owners, because they may have valuable feedback that can help you with your on your time on the board. So providing that open communication, what does that do? And being accountable if there's big problems by having a town hall, it shows people that you want to be transparent and that you want to do the right thing. Okay, another responsibility is having a budget for your community and then sticking to the budget. So we're in May of 2024, probably this summer, late summer. As a board, you're going to be talking about the 2025 budget. And for those of you who may be aware, we have some wonderful cheat sheets that we prepared. I know that we've already shared with you probably the board member cheat sheet that I'm teaching this class off of. But we have a great cheat sheet on budgets, right? So keep that in your back pocket. And in August or September, when you're thinking about preparing your budget for 2025, get that cheat sheet out and take a look at it. You will want to make good decisions about the numbers because ultimately you're setting yourself up for success. So that cheat sheet can give you good advice about, do we need to increase our assessments? How do we do it, et cetera? And how do we prepare a good budget so the numbers are accurate so we don't have a shortfall and not have enough money in the middle of the year? Another really great thing that boards should be doing is have a reserve study done. A reserve study is kind of like you hire a third-party contractor to come in and prepare it for you, somebody that has experience, maybe has a special designation or license to do reserve studies. But basically, that's a great planning tool for your association to plan for how long your amenities and other common areas, how much more useful life do they have? And it helps you put away money every year so that at the end of the useful life of the tennis courts, we have enough money reserved for that in our reserve account to resurface the tennis courts. So it's just a great planning tool that I think is an important responsibility for, something that can help you fulfill your responsibility to maintain the common areas. Having a reserve study is a really great idea because it helps you plan out the future. Another important thing that you need to be aware of under the law is you do have to have your financial records of your association audited or reviewed or a compilation done every year. And so we're kind of in that phase right now, right? So we're looking at the 2023 books. And by June 30th of 2024, you need to have the audit review or compilation done of your association's 2023 books. And so many of you probably are scrambling right now to get that done for your association. Now, remember, you don't have to have an audit done by a CPA unless your documents require that. So if your documents say that you have to have an audit done by a CPA, it probably would be in your bylaws, then guess what? You have to do it, even though it's expensive and even though you may not have the money for it. Most associations don't have that requirement to have an audit done by a CPA. And so you can have the compilation or review done by basically anybody. I mean, of course, you want somebody, you don't want the fox guarding the hen house, right? So you want to have an independent third party with some experience doing the review or the compilation. Another important responsibility of serving on the board is making sure your association has insurance and the required insurance under your documents and state law. We have a great cheat sheet on insurance that I would encourage you to take a look at. Also, look at the insurance provisions in your documents because they're going to give you a good feel for what the requirements are. Another thing that I think is really important is have a relationship with your insurance agent. Invite them to a Zoom board meeting and have them, just give a quick little 5-minute presentation. Why is it important? Because when something bad happens, you are going to need your insurance company to help you, right? If it's maybe you have to make an insurance claim or you have a bad storm and a huge tree blows into the common areas and knocks over the association's clubhouse or gazebo or something like that. Or maybe you're, a big lawsuit is filed against you by an owner. And what you don't want to have happen is you don't want to get 1-800 by your insurance agent, right? Just say, call 1-800 number and make the claim. No. What you want is you already want to have that relationship with the insurance agent, and you call them and you say, hey, we got this claim in. What do you suggest we do? Because sometimes the claim really shouldn't be made. Like, let's give an example. Let's say the damage on something is $4,000 to fix for the association, and you have a deductible of $10,000. Well, it doesn't make sense to make a claim on that, right? Because it's less than the deductible. You'd have to pay $10,000, get $4,000. That doesn't make sense. So, get to know your agent. Invite them once a year to a board meeting. Ask questions. Ask if they have any suggestions for your association. Ditto on your attorney for your association. Your attorney is a very important part of your community. And you want to have a good relationship with your attorney and be able to pick up the phone and they know who you are. They're not going to give you to one of their 25 associates who's never met you and doesn't know anything about your association. You want to have that relationship with them so that when there's a problem, they take your call. They understand, what happened with Mrs. Kravitz 2 years ago, right? They remember. And they care about your community. They understand what issues your community is facing and is here as a trusted advisor to help you continue to be successful and to stay out of lawsuits and follow the law. And that kind of goes with, another thing that we're going to talk about is the annual meeting. Every year, your association is required by law to have an annual meeting. That is really your time to shine as a board, meaning that this volunteer job, right, that you put so much time in, most people don't come to regular board meetings, but I think you typically get a higher percentage of people coming to the annual meeting each year. So you really want to have great preparation for the annual meeting. You want to get things out early in terms of the notice or the request for candidates and then the notice of the meeting and the ballot. And then when people show up, you want it to be very professional in terms of the meeting starts on time and, you maybe have some refreshments and the board, says what their accomplishments are and they also talk about their challenges and how we plan to overcome them. The management company's there, they're introduced, they give a little presentation. Maybe you have a guest speaker like the police chief or your lawyer or politician. You want to plan it all out really well. And we have a cheat sheet that can help you if you're in this situation of planning your annual meeting and you want some suggestions. Check out our cheat sheet. You can find that on our website at mulcahylawfirm.com. And we have a special one just on the annual meetings. Okay, a few more topics on your board member roles and responsibilities. A couple things that, are just they're kind of box checkers, but you have to do them and I want you to be aware of them. So number one, every year you have to file an annual report with the Arizona Corporation Commission for your association. You don't want to miss doing that. Okay. Why? Because if you don't file your annual report over a period of a couple of years, no annual report being filed, what happens is that corporate shield around the board will go away because you'll become defunct as a corporation. And then what does that mean? Individual owners will be liable for the debts of the association, which we do not want to have. So a little bit of homework after this class here today would be for you to go to the Arizona Corporation Commission website. And the way to do that, just go to Google, type in Arizona Corporation Commission. And then on the homepage, you should click on the button that says something like look up information on a corporation. Type in your association's name and check to see if you're in good standing. If you're not in good standing, you need to reach out to your trusted advisors, your management company, or your attorney and fix that. And that form needs to be filed every single year. And there's a nominal fee that goes with, filing the annual report form, but you have to do it every year. And it's really important. It's easy to do. It takes 2 minutes to do. But the importance of it is really significant because it gives you that corporate shield around your association. Another box checker thing that's important is you have to file state and federal taxes annually as an association. So, you are required to, it's due on March 15th because you're a business and you have to file state and federal taxes. It's honestly just a form. You probably will have your CPA do it for you, but it shouldn't be a big expense to do it, right? A couple other things you need to be aware of. If you're a planned community, you have to file property tax, or you have to pay property taxes. So you want to make sure that your association is paying them. Usually it's nominal because there's a law that values the common areas at $500 per parcel and allows you to combine them into one parcel for tax purposes. But just kind of a thing to remember is, okay, we have to have, if we're a planned community, we have to make sure that we're paying those taxes every year. Usually most associations break them up and pay them, over 2 different points each year. But it's just something that you need to be aware of. Another final thing that I want to talk about is the Corporate Transparency Act. This is a federal law that was, signed into law by the federal government. It's right now, it's the law. I hope it doesn't stay the law forever, but basically this law was passed and went into effect January 1st, 2024. And compliance with the law starts January 1st, 2025. It's kind of a crazy law. Basically what it says is that, it was passed by the United States Congress because they want to prevent money laundering and trafficking of, terrorist activity, etc. I don't know how the associations as nonprofit corporations got dragged into complying with this law, but we did. It applies to all nonprofit corporations and for-profit associations, with some exceptions. I'm doing a broad brush here on it, but we have to comply with it. And we have to provide contact information for the association directors and, additional information regarding corporation. And the compliance starts January 1st, 2024. So what I've been telling our clients is, okay, there's already been one court somewhere in the Southeast that has already deemed this law unconstitutional. And I think we need the dominoes to start falling, this summer and into the fall. And it's possible that the legislature, the U.S. Congress may, fine-tune this law to carve out associations. I know that the national chapter of CAI is doing everything possible to try to, make it so that we're not needing to comply with this law. But, okay, here's the bottom line. As of right now, you still have to comply with it. There's companies that are doing this for HOAs and condos. National companies, they're doing it for HOAs and condos and other corporations. It may be something you're going to want to look into having them do it for you, starting in October or November. But stay tuned because it might be something that we don't have to comply with after all. But just keep that on your radar that, okay, hey, we've got to think about this Corporate Transparency Act. It's due January 1st, 2025. And we need to keep an eye on whether or not this law will be changed and it won't apply to us. Okay, last piece of parting advice would be have a professional and approachable manner and business-like decision-making when you're serving on the board. It's hard because I've probably been to, between my career and all the board meetings that I've been to over 14 years for my association, I've probably been to like 15,000 board meetings in 27 years. And I've seen just about everything: bad behavior, good behavior, crazy behavior, guns pulled, police come. And the best advice I can give you is, be transparent as a board. Communicate with your owners often as a board. Be approachable. Be businesslike in how you handle your business transactions. Follow the law, right? Follow state law, follow federal law, go to classes like this so that you are continuing to get education, so that you make sure that you're following the laws and handling things correctly. Make sure that you have relationships with your trusted advisors, right? Your management company, your lawyer, your insurance agent, your reserve specialist. All these are people who are here to help you. And really, last but not least, don't forget about your fiduciary duty to the corporation: duty of care, duty of confidentiality, duty to avoid conflicts of interest. These are all just really important tips for you as you're serving on your board. And I encourage you, go back and look at this cheat sheet. Check out our website. We have a wealth of free information for anybody on how to run your association, comply with Arizona law, comply with federal laws. We have, over 80 videos that have received over, 85,000 views on a lot of different topics pertaining to associations. So take a spin through our website, look at our helpful videos, look at our cheat sheets as you're navigating your time on the board. Come to these seminars on live so that you can have your questions answered live. Okay, we're going to be sharing 2 cheat sheets with you, and then I'm going to get right into the questions today. The first one is going to be on duties and responsibilities of board members. I think we probably already shared that with you. Also, we have a couple other cheat sheets I think would be helpful for you. One is on amending association documents and implementing rental restrictions. Summertime is always a great time to get caught up on projects like, hey, do we want to amend our CC&Rs? And this summer especially is going to be important because we have a new law that says that associations will be able to amend their CC&Rs to remove any unlawful provisions. So this summer would be a great time to do that, to get that ready for when the effective date of the new law comes in. You wouldn't even need to get homeowner approval to, replace unlawful provisions. We also have a great cheat sheet on federal laws and community association records and documents. You can find all of those on our website. We also have a good one on community association board meetings that talks about the open meeting law. And either we're sharing them with you now, or you can find them on our website at mulcahylawfirm.com. Last but not least, we're going to talk a little bit about the code of conduct for boards. So we have a great cheat sheet on that. Got any problems, board members that, are problematic, not following the documents, being difficult? Whip out this code of conduct cheat sheet to help you navigate that problem. Okay, one last thing I'm going to mention is how to handle board member burnout. I'll be honest with you, I'm a little burned out on my board. I'm on 2 boards right now. And I think probably the best thing to do if you are, experiencing board member burnout is, what are the signs first? Okay, so people are checking out, right? They're not coming to board meetings. They're not communicating. Maybe they're dropping the ball on things they said that they would do. Just not motivated, just not contributing anymore. Now, I think my burnout is more that sometimes our meetings are too long, and sometimes I feel like we're not accomplishing anything, and it's frustrating for me to be on board when I feel like I'm giving of my time and I'm not seeing the results as fast as I would like to see things being improved in our community. So a couple things you might want to do if you're feeling board member burnout in your community. You might want to bring in our firm to help you with the boot camp and talk through the issues, right? Let's get everything on the table, and let's talk through what are our problems, what do we need to do some planning for the future, are there personality conflicts? How can we set some goals for this year that we can, manageable, smart goals that we can achieve this year? And talk about board member expectations and, hey, is somebody really so burned out that maybe it's time to resign and appoint somebody else new who might have some new energy to bring to the board. So keep an eye on that board member burnout and think about using the boot camp opportunity that I told you about. We've done, a lot of them over the years and have really helped a lot of associations that might be struggling with any of these issues. Okay. Last but not least, we have a great cheat sheet on dealing with difficult people and harassment that I think would be helpful for your association if you have any difficult people situations, which most of our clients do. That's why we wrote the cheat sheet. We're going to be sharing that with you as well. We covered a lot of territory today. Actually, I think we covered more territory in this class than we probably cover in 4 classes normally. Just remember as you're, thinking about what are my responsibilities to the board, go back to this cheat sheet. It's very helpful. It contains great information for you and all the cheat sheets that we've shared with you today. Check out our website and keep our firm in mind if you have any questions or problems that arise. We are at that time where we're at the conclusion. We covered a lot of ground today. So thank you so much for being here. We had over 145 on Zoom people here today, which is awesome, and many more on Facebook Live. Thank you again for joining us today, and I'd like to give a special shout out to the cities of Avondale, Chandler, Glendale, Goodyear, Mesa, Peoria, Phoenix, Scottsdale, Surprise, and Tempe for their continued partnership. And a high five for you guys getting a representative, or at least some representatives from each city here today, which is awesome. Our firm recently released the class topics for July through December 2024 for our virtual HOA Condo Academy classes. We have those all posted on our website now, so we're just going to keep on moving forward. We planned a great curriculum for the second half of the year, so I encourage you to take a look at that. Don't forget, our next live virtual First Friday event is set for Friday, June 7th at 9 a.m. Next month, we have our 6th class of 2024 for the virtual HOA Condo Academy is set for Tuesday, June 18th at 11 a.m. The topic for next month's class is going to be Untangling the Web, Navigating Politics, and Frequently Asked Questions in HOAs and Condos. So I hope that you will join us for this class. It's going to be all about sticky situations, navigating politics, and how that all works in an association. And we're going to also address our firm's most frequently asked questions. So I hope you'll join us for that class on June 18th. Take care, everybody. Have a great rest of the month in May, and look forward to seeing you at our future classes. Take care. Bye.